If you have ever wanted to learn how to save money from someone who is not already like a billionaire, this is your video. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Ruth and I'm a millennial living here in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm sharing my journey to financial freedom online. So if you're interested in personal finance, budgeting, saving, all that good stuff, consider subscribing or liking, even commenting, sharing, whatever you're up for, whatever you're in the mood for. I'd appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, if you watch my October financial reset video, then you would know that it's very much a priority for me right now to build my emergency fund back up to 10K. I feel like having a little bit of money squirreled away does two things for your sense of self-worth. One, I feel like it just gives you the confidence that you can actually manage money consistently and follow through on your goals, which is just such a foundationally important thing. And for me, at least, it snowballed into just making better financial decisions overall. And two, it gives you the freedom to be able to either take more risks or to leave a shitty situation if you need to. Eventually, when I did save up an emergency fund, that is what gave me the freedom to say yes to moving across the country with my now fiance, because I just had a cushion there that I could rely on while I was looking for work. All that to say, everyone has their own reasons for wanting to save 10K, but I feel like for me, that sense of security just allows me to live life more fully. I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory and then we're going to get into my top tips for saving your first 10K. I'm someone who doesn't come from money. I have a negative net worth currently because I'm paying back my student loans. I have a fairly modest salary, no passive income sources out there yet. But all that to say, I know it's like to be in the trenches. I literally was in the trenches very recently. My first 14 months after graduation, I saved hard and I saved 10K. I had $9,000 in a Wealthsimple cash account, and then I had a $1,000 float in my checking. Then I met my now fiance and we moved across the country to save money, and ironically, I depleted my entire emergency fund down to the last $1,000. Yeah. And that is when I realized I needed to make a change because I did not feel in control of my money anymore. And I felt incredibly anxious, and it was impacting my desire to save for things like our wedding. So that's where we are now. At this very moment, I have $1,850 of my emergency fund saved, and my goal is to build it back up to 10K. I have done it before, and I'm going to do it again, and I am going to do it in the next 10 months, and this is exactly how. Before we get into it, I just want to give a little bit of a disclaimer. These are tips that work for me. This is how my brain works. This is how I think about money. This is not me saying it's the right way by any means or that it will work for everyone. I'm just sharing my story, what has worked for me in the past, and also what I would do differently this time to achieve my goal even faster. I don't know about you, but one thing that tends to happen whenever I set a big savings goal is I tend to get into this scarcity mindset, and I'm really trying to stay away from that because, one, I don't think it's a very healthy way to think about money. Two, I feel like it sucks absolutely all the fun out of life. Lastly, I feel like it's actually counterproductive to my goals because I end up self-sabotaging more. Kind of like when you go on a really restrictive diet, you feel so deprived after a while that you end up just blowing it all on the weekend. So for me, step one is always increasing my income. And I like to think of it like a sprint rather than a marathon. I feel like I'm very motivated if I can just convince myself to get to that finish line as fast as possible, and then I can catch my breath, I can look around, and I can go from there. I do think there's something to be said for having the mindset of building sustainable long-term habits, but I just know that can happen after I build the emergency fund. After I have that sense of security, then I can kind of calm down and work on things at a little bit more of a reasonable pace. That's just how I like to think about it, because for me, this is step one. Like, this is the foundation. once the foundation is in place, then comes the fun part, and I'm motivated to get to the fun part faster. So step one for me, when I want to increase my income, I get a second job, folks. The first time I saved 10K, I was working 9 to 5, a contract position, and then I did virtual nutrition counseling as a dietitian 2 nights during the week, Tuesday and Thursdays, and then I did a couple hours on Saturdays as well. And that brought in anywhere from $800 to $1,200 every single month, and that made a massive difference in my savings. This time around, I am only working 0 0.8 full-time hours at my clinic job, so it feels very reasonable for me to work 10 to 20 hours doing virtual counseling on the side. I think I can do it, and I know that that is going to it's already making a massive difference in my ability to save without feeling that scarcity mindset. If in a couple months I decide like this is too much, I can balance both jobs, I can always just decrease my hours in one and still balance 2 income streams. Like I said, I'm a very anxious person, so I feel like I actually function better when I have 2 income streams that aren't necessarily both full-time, because God forbid I get let go from one of them, I have something coming in while I'm looking for another job, or I can just increase my hours at that job. Maybe you're not a dietitian. That is a very high possibility. I'm lucky in that I have virtual options, and if you have virtual options for that second job, I would highly recommend it. But if not, I think something like a DoorDash or an Instacart can be beneficial for just flexible hours for that second source of income. We have personally tried out Instacart, and I would recommend that just because they reimburse you for gas, which is obviously a huge cost for stuff like Uber and DoorDash. This is not a sponsored video. Like, I make way more doing virtual nutrition counseling, which is why I do that as my main source of income. But if you're someone who's not a dietitian, you're looking around, you don't see a lot of virtual options, I would try to do something like an Instacart. I know it sounds very hustle culture-y to suggest getting a second job, but I urge you to think of it like a sprint. Get a second job that you're okay letting go if, you hit that goal and you don't enjoy working 2 jobs. And also be realistic. I'm looking at you. It's not going to be passive income. It's not going to be passive income at this point. Maybe in the future, but don't say, okay, I'm going to get a second job, aka I'm going to start posting on TikTok and monetize that. No, get a second reliable source of income and then maybe use that as motivation to create content around it. Okay? I just thought I'd say that. Just thought I'd put it out there in case that's what you were thinking. I don't want to get a second job because I want to have time to build my YouTube channel, because that's what's going to help me save to 10K. No, it won't. No, it won't. This is me saying I'm out here with 2 jobs and then I'm posting on YouTube. The priorities are very much job, YouTube when you can. And that's how it should be until you have your emergency fund saved. Okay? Glad we had that chat. Another thing to think about too is with that second job, you are going to spend less money. When you are working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evenings and Saturdays during the day, there is just simply less time to spend your damn money. Like, I'm someone who likes to think through purchases, and I don't like online shopping. I like to go in person, and I just physically don't have the time now. So I feel like my spending has gone way down. The other thing too is, I don't know, something about the more I work, the more I start to think of my expenses as transactions, which is kind of a good way to think about them. Like, instead of buying a new pair of pants from Aritzia, in my mind, I'm like, that is 3 hours. That is 3 meal plans. I don't know. It just helps you evaluate the worth of that item a little bit more. In the same vein as thinking about a scarcity mindset, rather than doing some intense budget that feels really restrictive, I would instead set a saving minimum. And then if you hit that target, whatever extra income you make, you can spend, you can treat yourself. I would think of it that way. So back in the day, back in the first 10K, I set myself a goal to save a minimum of $500 a month. Some months I would put in more than that. I just wasn't spending that much. Now I feel like because my income has increased, I want to save $1,000 a month. Hence, I'm able to save that 10K faster. But That is how I would think about it, rather than trying to be so stingy with all of your expenses so that you can save the most amount possible each month. I just don't think that is a good way to live, even though it's only 10 months of my life and hopefully that's just a drop in the bucket. I still think there's value in enjoying the day to day and having that balance there. So set yourself a minimum that you want to save each month that's realistic, but gives you a little bit of room to enjoy your life a bit. It's not all hustle culture over here. We do live a little. Okay, moving on. Step number 4 is to reduce your expenses. Yeah, I had to go there. You can't really make a video about saving without talking about this, but again, you can think about it in that sprint mentality where it's not a forever thing. You're just tightening the reins while you're prioritizing this goal. For us, we were living in a 3-bedroom, and that was actually way too much space for us. Granted, it was in like a different neighborhood in Calgary that was not as pricey, but we actually decided to move downtown into a 1-bedroom, and the building also had a gym in it. So we were saving a lot of money in rent, downsizing, but we were also saving on the cost of a gym membership. I don't want to tell you how much we were paying as a gym membership because it was insane, and I'm going to blame Joel for that. Those two things help us save $700 a month cumulatively, so like $350 each, which is huge. It's a huge portion of saving, especially when your goal is to save for an emergency fund. I would urge you to just have some really tough conversations. If you're someone who splits expenses with another person, have a conversation about downsizing. Do the math on how much you will save, because that was like the deciding factor. We were originally going to move from a 3-bedroom into a 2-bedroom downtown, and we weren't going to save any money, but we did the math on the difference if we were to move into a 1-bedroom. And I think with wedding savings looming overhead, we just realized there was no way we could justify that extra expense, and we were going to make it work with a 1-bedroom. And like, we're not going to be in this 1-bedroom forever. I'm going to be a YouTube sensation. Once we have that passive income, maybe we'll think about a 2-bedroom. All that to say, if you don't have 10K saved, I feel like you're not in a position to be picky with things like that. I don't know. That's just how I think about it. You do you though. You do you. So think about where you're living now. If you have the freedom to move or to get another roommate, just think about it. Okay. I don't really have much more to say on reducing your expenses because, yeah, I think there's value in putting it out there. But I just know when I was watching these videos, I was like living with like 4 roommates, absolutely hating my life, not having a car, taking the bus everywhere, shopping at the Freshco or at Walmart for my groceries, not spending a lot of money. So really there was like minimal room to reduce expenses. The increased income would have been the way to go. But all that to say, if you have room to have those tough conversations, if you're splitting expenses with other people, or if you're not splitting expenses, contemplate splitting them. Do the math on it. You'll convince yourself. Okay? I've always had a lot of shame around my financial situation. And I think sitting here right now, I'm reflecting on like the lifestyle creep I've had since graduating, since getting engaged. And I think it's okay to have a little bit of that inflation, lifestyle inflation, but there's definitely room to humble yourself. Like, I used to get acrylic nails every single month. Those were costing $80, $100 with tip if I was feeling generous. I am just going with my natural nails now. I get a polish change every month. It's $25. I don't need acrylics. It's not that deep. I just couldn't justify spending that much money, placing that much value on my nails without having an emergency fund saved. I'm also not buying any new clothing. Doesn't mean I'm not buying clothing. I'm just buying it secondhand. I feel like in this day and age, and especially while you're saving for an emergency fund, there is no reason you should be buying brand new clothes. We have Plato's Closet. You can get all the fast fashion you want there for a steal of a deal. And if that's not your thing, which I totally get, there are an abundance of consignment stores that offer clothing that is cheaper than retail price. I have gotten multiple pairs of Aritzia Effortless pants at consignment stores, $35, which granted is expensive for secondhand clothing, but it's not $110. Sure as hell is not full price. Why are you out there spending money on new clothing when you do not have an emergency fund saved? Get your priorities straight. It's not meant to sound like a personal attack. I'm just speaking to the person I was, okay? You can buy brand new underwear. You're allowed that, okay? And socks. And maybe shoes within reason. The other thing I want to reflect on, and maybe this is helpful for you, are the ways in which you are lazy with your finances. For me personally, I am really bad at canceling subscriptions. Like, I will see them as a recurring expense every time I do my financial review, and I just won't take the time to go in and cancel it. If that's you, I get it, but also like, get it together. And I think another way that I'm very financially lazy, that is actually a goal for myself, is to make better use of my sole proprietorship. I should be linking my business related expenses to my business credit card so that those can be a write-off going forward. Like, yeah, I'm still paying them for them every month, but that doesn't mean I can't get money back in tax season for business expenses accumulated throughout the year. Like, I need my Zoom for my virtual counseling. Maybe not the most relatable example, but just take the time to reflect on kind of where you're lazy with your expenses, or where you could be making better use of the financial tools at your disposal. Those are my steps for saving your first 10K. Hopefully that video was at the very least entertaining, and at the very most helpful and the wake-up call you needed to hear. And if you're sitting there feeling a little bit overwhelmed with your current financial situation, just know that I completely understand what you're going through, and it does get better. You are on the right path. You're taking the time to focus on something that really matters. I think it's really easy to feel weighed down or to feel really helpless as a millennial or a Gen Z thinking about your financial future. But hopefully this video inspired you to take the first step towards financial security and just giving yourself that financial cushion so that you can live life a little less stressfully. If you're saving for your first 10K, consider subscribing. I will be sharing updates for my own journey on this channel, and we can work through it together. And I can hear a train coming. That is my sign to say bye. These trains are pissing me off, man. They're pissing me off.